Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see that the deep state control, it's completely and utterly over. They have lost the narrative. They've lost control. They're losing their money. They're losing their foot soldiers across the world. And the deep state, the central bankers, they're losing control of the oil. And you have to remember, the deep state players, the central bankers, they used the United States, the armed forces here, to push the criminal syndicate across the world, to force countries into doing what they wanted. And when Trump stepped in, because the people elected him, he removed that power from the deep state, the central bankers. You have to remember, the central bank system, they're not allegiant to any country or to any people. They don't have sitting armies. Yes, they created the terrorist organizations to assist them, but they really don't have a sitting army. They used countries to be their standing army to force other countries into doing or protecting what they have set up. Trump, when he was elected, took that away from them. They do not have the power of the United States. Actually, they lost the executive branch. They lost the military. They lost the people. They lost the narrative. And Trump is using these forces against them and slowly but surely exposing their entire criminal syndicate. Yes, you're seeing the money laundering being exposed. You're also seeing Trump exposing the shadow networks and the shadow routes where they use these shadow networks to filter the money into certain locations. And we're seeing this out in Iran. When we said from the very beginning, is Trump truly fighting the mullahs, really truly fighting Iran, or is he fighting other forces? He already called them out with a post on Truth, letting them know that he's shutting down their entire system where they filter money into the country, which tells you that Europe and the central bank and others, they have been orchestrating all of this. And he's letting them know that I know that you're doing this. So you can either come with us or I will completely and utterly shut you down and I'll expose which countries are involved with this and what organizations are involved in this. And this is what Trump is doing right now. Because remember, we're not just battling another country. This is not just a war because, we just don't like these people. This is about taking the control away from the deep state, the central bankers worldwide, because they've taken the control from we, the people. If the free market can't control the price of oil and you have a central criminal system controlling oil, the energy of the world, well, do we have control? Can you bring back manufacturing? Can you create jobs? Can you do any of these things? You cannot. And you have to remember, they did all of this because we're coming to the end of the central bank system. The central bank system only lasts for a certain period of time. And what they need to do at the end of the cycle is they have to reset it. That's why it's called the Great Reset. We're at the end of that cycle. This is why they thought, going back to 2020, this would be the perfect time for the Great Reset. This is why you had Prince Charles at the time, who's king now, and Klaus Schwab. This is why they were out there letting everyone know that this is the perfect time for the Great Reset, because they really do believe, they believed that they had the pandemic. They were going to be able to shut down the economy worldwide. They were going to be able to destroy their old economy and basically reduce the population and restart the system all over maybe 8, 9, 10 years later. Well, that didn't happen. If they don't have a pandemic, what do they normally do? They use a war. War causes great destruction. They destroy the infrastructure. They kill a lot of people. And you need the central bank to fund the war. And then when the war is over, what happens? They designate a new country to be the reserve currency of the world, and they start this system all over again. But this time around, they were going to try to use the central bank digital currency to basically enact their new system. Trump is putting an end to all of this. This is what you're witnessing across the globe. He's shutting it all down. He's shutting down their power. So if you truly want to take power back from the United States, away from the criminal syndicate, you need to shut down their system worldwide. This is why Trump let everyone know that, listen, there are certain entities that are actually funding Iran. They're using the shadow network system to keep them operational, which tells you what you need to know. He's not just fighting Iran. He's fighting the criminal syndicate. He's fighting the central bankers. This is not a war like the deep state had a war where they went into Iraq or Libya or Lebanon, where they brought troops on the ground and they had a regime change. Trump is fighting those forces that actually had the regime change in those countries. This is who he is fighting. He's not going to bring troops onto the ground. There's no reason to do that because he's not fighting the people of that country. He's not pushing, hey, we got to remove the mullahs and put other people in the place. He's actually fighting the deep state, the central bankers. This is why he doesn't need the troops. This is why he doesn't need to bring the troops in there, because the enemy is not the little group of mullahs and the IRGC. Yes, they're the front men, but he's fighting the people behind them. And he just called them out on all of this. And you're going to see that everything that they thought they had, all the leverage they thought they had, it completely disappeared. Trump and team has already built a passage into the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, the pipelines are being built. That's going to take a little bit of time. But they've already built a way in and out of the Strait of Hormuz, which means, like we said from the very, very beginning, Iran, the central bankers, the deep state players, they don't have control anymore. They played their hand. They lost. Millions upon millions of barrels of oil are going in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. And this is very, very important because remember, Trump is not just going after a couple of people. He's going after their entire system that they set up. And that includes the Federal Reserve, the central bank establishment. That includes the criminal syndicate that they set up across the world, worldwide. That includes China, because remember, China, they were setting this up to be the next financial system of the world. This is why they had Europe moving fast forward with the Green New Scam. This is why they had the United States moving fast forward with the Green New Scam, Canada moving forward with the Green New Scam, because they were shifting everything to China. Trump is now shutting that all down and exposing the entire network. That's what he's doing because, again, he knows in the end, we need a country that can actually operate. And we need to get rid of the central bank in the end. That's what this is all about. Yes, getting the evidence of the nuclear dust, putting these people in prison. Yes, that comes afterwards. Because if the central bank, the deep state players are in control and they had their terrorists and they had their networks, they had what they needed, it would be a fight that it would be very, very difficult to win. So you dismantle all of this first, then you use the evidence that you've collected over a long period of time, and then you arrest and you have accountability afterwards. This is what you're witnessing right now. And if you look at the economy actually aspect of it, and that's the most powerful part of it, I know people don't think so, but it is. Whoever controls the creation of currency controls the world. The central bank took control of the creation of currency. I mean, this is the third one we had in this country. It's not part of the government, by the way. It's a private corporation. It's owned by the central bankers. And whoever creates the currency owns the world, because the currency that they're creating, it's theirs. They are loaning it to you. You just received a loan. Take that piece of paper out of your pocket. What does it say on top? It says Federal Reserve note. It doesn't say U.S. dollar, part of the Treasury. You're using their currency. They control you. And if I'm going to allow you to use this currency because it's borrowed, you're going to have to pay me back. So basically, you're a slave in their system. It's slave labor. They're taking 30, whatever it is, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of your money. They track you every day. People are worried about being tracked or spied on. Well, if you go back in time, they've been doing this for a very long time. They have a registry of how much you make. They have a registry of how much you need to pay. They have a registry that they continually track you every single day. Yes, they want to expand this, but this is what they've been doing for a very long time. Our founding fathers never wanted this. You think the founding fathers wanted the government to track your money? How much you make? No. You've been living in an illusion. And Trump now is ending all of this. And when you look at what he's doing with the elections right now, because you have to remember, for them to stay in power, they needed to create an election system that keeps them in power. That's what they did. That's the election system that we've been using. Trump right now is basically dismantling their election system. He's going back to a system that actually works for the people, where it doesn't install who they want, because that's what they've been doing for a very long time. Remember, criminals do things so they can stay in power. They create laws, even though they're unconstitutional to the Constitution. They create laws to make sure that you can't catch them. Like, take, for example, California. They created a law, and it passed, and Newsom has to sign it, that it's called the Nick Shirley Law, where you can investigate fraud. So think about what they do here. They create laws. They created a system of laws to legalize their cheating in the election. They created a law to make sure you can't find out that they're committing fraud. You see, this is how the criminal syndicate works. It's not just a one-off thing. This is what they've done. They've created these laws to protect themselves. They had the executive branch to protect themselves. They had the judges to protect themselves. They had the terrorists across the world to protect themselves. They protected their system. Trump is dismantling that system. And when he dismantles their system in regards to the elections, you're going to see a red wave that you've never, ever seen before. And yes, all those poll numbers, remember the poll numbers are part of that election system that they created. When you see the results of the midterms, people are going to be absolutely shocked. Just like people are shocked when they looked at the primaries and you look at the Republicans and you go, whoa, wait a minute. They're not even, the poll numbers aren't even close, because it's a lie. It's been a lie for a very, very long time. Just like it's a lie that guns are going to cause more crime. Guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens. You're going to have shootouts on the street. If you let them carry it concealed, it's going to be a complete and utter disaster. That is another lie that they told the American people. And the FBI new crime report is out, and it's safe to say that those who listen to the prediction of anti-Second Amendment groups are wondering where the crime is. Since the Supreme Court struck down the New York discretionary system for issuing concealed carry permits in June of 2022, groups like Everytown, Giffords, and the Brady United predicted public safety would be diminished by the decision. However, the FBI's data noted that in 2025, the murder rate went down 18.1%, while violent crime fell over 9%. This is not surprising for two reasons. First, since Bruin, states like California, New York, and New Jersey can't deny a permit because someone didn't prove good cause to carry a firearm. Second, we're also seeing many states going to constitutional carry where no permit is needed at all. A would-be crook has much larger chance of coming across an armed citizen when he's trying to commit his crimes. So do you think the criminal would say, listen, I don't know if this person's carrying because it's constitutional carry. People are allowed to carry guns, and I know a lot of people carry guns in this area. You know what? I'm not going to do what I would do like in a place where it's a gun-free zone. And this makes them think twice because they don't know what they're up against, especially when you're concealed. You see, I'd rather be concealed than actually carry something on my hip, because that signals to the criminal that there's the gun. The first thing I have to do is get rid of that gun. Shoot that person first, get that person out of the way, and then hopefully the other person is not concealing. If you're concealed, nobody knows what you have. It's a surprise. Just like a criminal uses a surprise on you, you surprise them. They don't like surprises. And once again, there are more people that actually stop criminals than there are mass shootings. It's not even close. Actually, for example, out in France, and Matt Morse put this out, more people died this year from not having air conditioning, 7,300, than American deaths from mass shootings in all recorded U.S. history, 1,741. Do you know how many people are saved with people that have weapons? Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And I think the FBI needs to start publishing this statistic and keeping track of this statistics so people know that, look, another person was saved. Another person was saved. And I do believe in the end, that is what's going to happen. Because you have to remember, the deep state players, they didn't want you to know how many people were saved. They only kept it one-sided. Oh, no, these are the people that died. So they make you believe that guns are bad. That was their whole mission. That was part of the 16-year plan to take the weapons away from the people. And now it's completely and utterly falling apart. Just like bringing in the illegals to all the countries is completely and utterly falling apart. The people are starting to realize these illegals are not upstanding citizens. They have no moral. They're criminals. They rape. They pillage. They bring in drugs. They're terrorists. And especially the people out in the UK, they get it. They understand what's going on. Bill Malugan put this out and says, the UK government has issued a 9-page behavioral guide for asylum seekers that includes teaching them that women must consent to sex in all situations. Women are allowed to work, study, and make their own decisions and don't need permission from men. And failing to adhere can result in their asylum claims being rejected. So wait a minute. They know they're bringing in rapists. They know they're bringing in people that want to do women harm. And they're telling them, hey, first ask before you do anything. Do you really think they're going to abide by this? I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. So they brought in these illegals and they're actually admitting, yes, these people will rape you. Awaken Outlaw says, first of all, way to get right on that. Hundreds of thousands of their girls and women have already been raped and sex trafficked. And the UK government puts out a pamphlet? Wow. How about getting rid of all those people? I mean, it's almost like saying, listen, hey, criminals, you see that sign over there? It says no guns allowed. And by the way, no robbing. So if you're thinking about that, don't do it because the sign says so. Do you really think they really care about that? No, they don't. It's absolutely ridiculous, just like everything else they do. And the other thing that we could see happening is that we've been talking about cyber attacks for quite a while. And I do believe that the deep state players, all they have left right now is any type of event to distract the people. And I think they're saving this one for later on because you have to remember, going back in time, the World Economic Forum said that we're ripe for some type of cyber attack, not just in the United States, but worldwide, on the financial institutions, on the infrastructure. And they just don't say these things to say it. They let you know that we're going to be doing this. Just like they ran a drill and they ran a simulation on a pandemic before they released the pandemic. So they know that they're going to do this, but the timing is always what they're waiting for. Because again, they try everything first, and if all else fails, then they release it. For example, during Trump's first term, what did they do? They tried Russia collusion, the Alpha Bank hoax. They tried impeachment number 1, number 2. They pretty much tried everything, and it all failed. That's why they released the pandemic in 2020, because they realized that there's no way of getting him. We tried everything. We're going to have to release the pandemic to rig the election and overthrow the United States government. They waited for the last minute. So when we talk about cyber attacks, it's the same type of invisible enemy. You can't see it. You can't smell it. You can't touch it. The deep state can tell you what's happening. They can shut down water systems. They can shut down power to convince you that something's happening when it really isn't. They could tell you that it's happening on TV. Say, hey, look, 3 water filtration systems went down and 2 power grid, generators went down in these areas. Yes, they can make you believe that it's happening. So when will they do this? I think when all else fails. And if you notice what is happening right now, they have no control anymore. They don't have control of the executive branch. The judges, the corrupt judges, they can't stop Trump. The delay tactics have completely and utterly failed. You could see that the cheating system that they put in place for the elections, that's not going too well. Trump is countering this every step of the way, and I do believe we're going to see a red wave in the midterms. So when do they do this? Do they do it during the midterms? Do they do it after the midterms? Well, it seems that the U.S. agencies, they're preparing for all of this because warnings are continually coming out. Pragmatic put this out and said, multiple U.S. agencies, NSA, FBI, DOE, EPA, CISA, warn of an active cyber threat exploiting Siemens S7 series programmable logic controllers in critical sectors like energy, water, wastewater, manufacturing, chemical, and food agricultural. Attackers scan internet, expose devices running outdated software, and use AI-generated scripts disguised as monitoring tools to lower the barrier for reconnaissance, credential access, and disruption. The current threat builds on prior Iran-linked campaigns against PLCs made by Rockwell and Schneider. So I do believe they're planning on something. It's just the time when they unleash it. I think when everything else fails, when they lose the midterms and they have nothing left, I think that is the time that they're probably going to use it. And you can see that Trump now is basically destroying everything that they had in place out in Iran. And it's not just about the mullahs and the Ayatollah. This is about the people behind the curtain. This is about the people that are controlling these individuals within Iran. And I'm talking about the deep state, the central bankers. And what's very interesting is, we mentioned this yesterday, that the United Arab Emirates, they suspended all trade, commercial exchanges, and financial transactions with Iran until further notice. UAE-Iran trade exceeded $28 billion annually, and Dubai has served for decades as Iran's commercial doorway to the outside world. This is therefore not a symbolic diplomatic protest. The UAE has served as one of Iran's most important supply lines, while simultaneously placing its own position as the neutral trading center of the Middle East at risk. The UAE has been Iran's largest source of non-oil imports, supplying nearly $22 billion in goods during the Iranian year ending in March of 2025. Much of this was not produced in the Emirates, but entered through its re-export system. The new ban, therefore, a financial blockade disguised as a trade regulation, Iran will now be forced to redirect transactions through China, Turkey, Iraq, Oman, Central Asia, and many other countries. And you could see that Trump and team, they are now shutting all this down. The UAE just shut off the switch, forcing Iran to move in different directions. And I do believe this was done on purpose, because think about what Trump is doing right now. He's isolating how they get their money, how the shadow networks fund them. And this is what he's exposing right now. But the other thing that we could see is all this time where everyone believed Iran had control of the Strait of Hormuz, they never did. The Iran Watcher put this out and said, the Islamic Republic is losing its grip on the Strait of Hormuz. More than 80% of vessels over the past 2 weeks have used the Oman side route, defying the Islamic Republic's preferred shipping corridor and continuing to transit under U.S. naval protection. Despite attacks on vessels and the regime's declaration of control, shipping continues through the route it opposes, limiting its ability to dictate passage and collect fees. The battle for Hormuz is increasingly becoming a contest of actual control. The Islamic Republic may claim the strait, but U.S. naval power is increasingly preventing it from enforcing that claim. Then Iran Watcher says the Islamic Republic claim that it controls the Strait of Hormuz is being shattered by what is actually happening at sea. The U.S. military has established a shipping corridor through the strait's southern channel, with 15 to 20 tankers transiting in and out each night under U.S. military guidance, moving roughly 10 million barrels per day. This is around half the pre-war oil flow, moving despite the Islamic Republic's attempts to impose control over the strait. The significance is enormous. The regime has presented control of Hormuz as one of its greatest strategic weapons, but if millions of barrels can move through every day under U.S. protection despite the regime's objections, claiming control of Hormuz and actually controlling it are two very different things. Trump Ruin put this out and said, President Trump on Iran, the strait is open, a lot of boats are coming through. Just because you don't see them on radar with GPS doesn't mean it's not happening. Remember, why do you want to say, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here? You go dark. You follow the Navy. The Navy protects you. You bring the ships in and out. So right now, everyone is learning that Iran never had control over the Strait of Hormuz. First, Trump put up a wall of steel, shut down every single ship that was going to Iran, number one. Number two, started to create a corridor to bring ships in and out, removed all the mines, removed their leverage while the strait was shut down. Pipelines are being built while oil is being brought in and out. You know who is really not selling their oil? Oh, Iran. Everyone else is getting their oil picked up and brought out of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is making no money from it whatsoever. So who's in control? The U.S. has always been in control. Iran used propaganda. Daniel Lacal, official account, says, Iran's resistance strategy has backfired spectacularly. The regime bet its entire strategy on threatening neighbors, funding terror proxies, and holding the world hostage over the Strait of Hormuz. That bet just collapsed. The regime only remains due to a system of terror and repression, not public support. The military power behind the threat has proven far weaker than advertised, incapable of even closing Hormuz to everyone except itself. The real lesson? Iran just exposed its own greatest vulnerability. Approximately 80% of its exports and roughly 25% of its GDP flow through that strait. By trying to weaponize it, Tehran didn't scare the world. It just handed everyone a map of its biggest weakness. Iran has done more damage to its own economy than any sanctions regime could ever do, while proving to global buyers that diversified, non-Iran energy routes are the safer bet longer term. Weakness disguised as leverage is still weakness. CNN is even admitting it, that Iran has lost significant control of the Strait of Hormuz. Stephen Chung says the U.S. has total control over the Strait of Hormuz, and that has always been true from the very, very beginning. Iran, if they had control, they'd be selling oil like crazy. They don't have control. And President Trump on Iran, the strait is open. A lot of boats are coming through. Absolutely. And now Trump is exposing who's really behind all of this. This is what he put out on Truth. No one has given the Islamic Republic of Iran a greater opportunity to make a deal than me. Tragically, for them, they have failed to take it. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country. This will be economic warfare and isolation on an unprecedented scale. Their navy is gone. Their air force is destroyed. Their military factories are now rubble. Their currency is worthless, and their country is hanging on by a thread. Today, I am also announcing that any country that allows its financial institutions, business, airports, or government entities to provide any type of lifeline to Iran will itself face tremendous economic consequences. Oil smuggling, swap lines, cash transfers, exchange houses, ship registries, front companies. It all needs to stop now. You know who you are. This will be an economic D-Day, and we need all of our allies to stand with the United States of America to isolate and defeat the Iran threat. Who do you think has been feeding Iran all of this money? Who are the countries that didn't come to the assistance of the United States? You're looking at the deep state players. These maniacs are on the ropes, and these historic measures will cripple them and their ability to project terror worldwide. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So the money flows in from extensive shadow networks. And yes, it's coming through Europe. It's coming through some of the Middle Eastern countries, might even be coming through the UK, China. This revenue was then divided among the cartels within Iran. So the shadow routes that kept the money flowing are being shut down. And basically, Trump is warning the deep state, warning these different countries, because again, they have a lot to lose. Remember, the central bank, the deep state players are in the shadows. They use these countries. And Trump now is calling them all out on this. Clandestine says, and there you have it. POTUS essentially confirms my analysis that he is engaged in modern version of siege warfare and will starve Iran out economically. Trump is perfectly content sitting in his current position with control of the strait and blockade on any and all imports, exports in and out of Iran. Trump has Iran and their trade partners by the balls. If they want the economic squeeze to stop, they must capitulate to Trump's demands. Trump does not have to send boots on the ground. He can just hold this dominant position, and Iran will implode. They can either submit or perish. Trump is proving that he's not like the corrupt presidents of the past, and that there are more effective and precise ways to defeat our enemies. Let me just take this a step further. He doesn't need boots on the ground because the real people he's fighting, they're not in Iran. The real people that he's fighting are the deep state players outside of Iran. He's not going to invade those countries, but he will expose them. He will shut down their shadow networks. You don't need boots for that. You see, once that's shut down, it's game over for Iran. You don't need to go in there. You don't need to do anything. You already have control of the Strait of Hormuz. You're already bringing oil in and out. Trump just beat them at their entire game. Remember, this is not deep state warfare, where the deep state went into Libya, Iraq, Syria, and all the rest of the countries to overthrow the leaders of those countries to make sure that they sell the oil using the petrodollar. Trump is fighting those people, those same deep state players that went into those countries. Because Libya, Gaddafi, he wanted to sell the oil not using the US dollar. He wanted to use the currency of Libya and gold. The deep state players, the same people that are supporting Iran, they went in there and said, no, you will not. Trump now is fighting them. He's shutting down their networks. That is who he's fighting. That's why he doesn't need boots on the ground. Observing conscience says, it's time. We speak of the they often. Trump just said, we are targeting them directly. Here we go. They are not a country on a map, but the financial machine hiding behind the evil. We will cut off from the U.S. economy any country, financial institution, business, individual that is not warning to Tehran. That is a warning to the entire network keeping sanctioned powered alive. The banks, oil buyers, exchange houses, shadow fleets, ship registries, front companies, offshore structures, and government providing the financial oxygen. Then Trump names the plumbing itself, himself, cash transfers, swap lines, oil smuggling, ship registries, exchange houses, front companies. That is they, them. At the system level. Not one mysterious room full of people, but an entrenched transnational architecture able to hide ownership, move money, reroute commodities, finance proxies, and keep sanctioned regimes functioning through layers of intermediaries. China sits on one of the largest arteries through Iranian energy and financial flows. The city of London sits inside the wider global machinery of banking, insurance, commodities, FX, and offshore capital. Follow the transaction far enough, and you stop looking at Iran. You start looking at the financial infrastructure connecting the whole thing. Then comes the line that should make every facilitator pay attention. You know who you are. That is Trump warning a network that has already been mapped. The military operation hits the weapons, ships, and physical infrastructure. Economic D-Day goes after the bloodstream underneath it. The trail is simple. Cut the banking, cut the settlement, cut the insurance, cut the shipping, cut the oil revenue, cut access to American economy, and suddenly the machine cannot finance itself, move itself, or rebuild itself. We've already cut most other revenue streams. Now we're cutting the head off the beast. Go one level higher. Iran is the doorway. They are the architecture behind it. This expands into major Chinese financial institutions and Western nodes, facilitating those flows. Trump isn't merely bankrupting an adversary. He's beginning to choke out the monetary rails that kept the old network alive. We seem to be heading into the closing acts. Things will likely get worse before they get better. Buckle up. And that's absolutely true. And what is he setting free? He's setting free oil. This is what the deep state, the central bankers have controlled, oil. Because again, it's part of their central bank system. And Karma Patriot, I think, pretty much just sums it up. Now, she's pointing to many, many different tweets that Trump produced going back to 2012. And every single one of them has to do with oil, has to do with like Obama, the Keystone Pipeline, Iran, energy. He's always been talking about oil. This is what Karma Patriot says. Everything President Trump is doing right now points to one goal. America becomes the undisputed king of oil and energy. Removing Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz, the Iran conflict, rebrand of the Gulf of America, Venezuela, Cuba, none of these were ever just about whatever narrative mainstream media was trying to sell you. It's always been about the oil. These first 2 years of Trump 47 have been about cutting the puppet master string and freeing up the waterways for oil. The next 2 years will be about building on those wins domestically, growing the economy, fast-tracking manufacturing, passing important legislation, securing elections, and ushering in the golden age. As the saying goes, oil is the lifeblood of modern civilization. What runs the world? Oil. Always has, always will. And this is what he's doing. He's removing the entire central bank structure that they established over a very, very long period of time. And when people say, well, I thought he said you weren't going to start wars, he's not starting a war. He's ending the system of war, because this is what the deep state, the central bankers have been doing. They're the ones who created all these wars. They're the ones who created all these type of situations. They're the ones who established their system. He's just removing their system. And yes, if you like to call this a war, it's a war against the system that they created. This is why Trump has the control, has the leverage. Now he's speaking to those people directly. That's why he said, you know who you are. He's warning them right now, stop or I will stop you. And what do you think the deep state players are going to do? You think they'll stop? You think they'll just give? No, he's going to shut it all down. That's why he says economic D-Day. He's shutting down the entire shadow network system. He gave them a chance. Let's see if they do it. I doubt it. He'll shut it down no matter what. And then, you know what happens at that point moving forward? Those individuals, the IRGC, it's meaningless. Everything then is shut off. Trump has all the leverage. They have no leverage with anything. He's just shut down the entire deep state central bank control over oil. Remember, this goes far beyond a couple of arrests. Remember, when Trump spoke about taking back control, taking the control away from D.C., taking control away from the central bankers to give it back to the people, it didn't mean Obama and Hillary Clinton. Yes, they're part of the system, but they aren't the system. And if he wants to hand it back to the people, he must remove everything that they put into place. And that is what he's doing right now. And it's going to be absolutely glorious when he does it. He's already in the process of doing it, and it's just going to get better and better as time goes on. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the deep state players, they're in a little bit of trouble right now. Because think about what we're seeing right now. Their crimes are being exposed. Their cover-up are being exposed. Their treasonous acts are being exposed. Remember, these are all the pawns inside the deep state system, the central bank system. And think about what just happened to Eric Swalwell. Yes, he was a pawn. He was part of the system. It's almost like when you have the mafia and you have those guys that go around and collect the money from people, and then you have a layer above them and a layer above them. Well, Eric Swalwell, he was pretty low on the totem pole. And basically, he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, and he was being rewarded for it. And now it seems like that's all falling apart for him. So Eric Swalwell is under federal investigation. He received a nasty surprise at the airport a few days ago. The FBI agents confronted Swalwell with a search warrant when he landed at San Francisco Airport on Saturday. Then they took the former congressman's electronic devices, including his cell phone, reportedly as part of the federal criminal investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct. The agents also entered Swalwell's D.C. home on Sunday with warrants and seized additional undisclosed potential evidence. At least 4 females have already come forward, including a former staffer who says Swalwell raped her twice when she was intoxicated to consent in 2019 and 2024. Another woman claimed that Swalwell drugged and raped her in 2018. 2 of the women allege that he sent them unsolicited pictures of his privates. And he's been sleeping with Fang Fang. I wonder how much information he gave her and how much access he gave her. Think about it. Now he's under investigation. It's amazing how things just all of a sudden, turn around. And now, as Swalwell continually pointed at Trump saying, oh, he's a criminal, it turns out that Swalwell is the criminal. And this always happens. They always project who they are onto to Trump or any other person. And now it's all falling apart. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that LA Mayor Karen Bass, she's out there letting everyone know if you donate to her campaign, the city can match your donation 6-1. If you donate 5, the city turns it into $35. Our campaign is powered by you, she says. And people said, well, isn't this illegal? I mean, how could this be? Why are taxpayers paying for any of this? Well, you got to go back a little bit in time here because the program itself is real and it's legal. Los Angeles voters approved a public matching fund system decades ago. Qualified small donations from city residents are matched 6-1 with limited public money for candidates who opt in, meet thresholds, and accept spending limits. The Ethics Commission runs it. A $5 donation can indeed become $35 total. Bass previously collected over $1 million in matching funds during her 2022 run, but legality does not equal legitimacy in the eyes of the furious Angelenos watching their city burn, literally and figuratively, under Bass's leadership. And again, why do you think they put this in place? Because again, they needed certain people that weren't, funded. They needed those people to get the money to beat out the other opponent. And they put all of this into place. And I think at this point in time, those people of LA, those people of California, they need to take a long, hard look at what they've done to their state because, again, their state is a complete and utter disaster. It's time for the people to rally together and vote these people out. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, they have the cheating system. How are they going to do that? You can override the cheating system because, again, as more and more of this comes out, there are more and more people saying, you know something, I'm not voting for communism. I'm not voting for socialism. I'm not doing any of this anymore. And that means more and more people are going to join the cause. Plus, think about what Trump is putting into place. He's basically putting a lot into place to mitigate their cheating, especially with AG Todd Blanche going up to the Supreme Court to actually get the voter rolls. You think California wants to hand over the voter rolls? See, once they do that, the jig is up. Their cheating system falls apart. And think about it. They definitely don't want anyone coming in and uncovering their money laundering operation. And this is why, and Eric already put this out, this is why California Democrat legislator has formally passed the Stop Nick Shirley Act, sending it to Governor Gavin Newsom's first signature. So basically, the bill criminalizes Shirley going around and confronting fraudsters while recording them, then posting it online, especially immigrant locations, and it was pushed by California AG Rob Bonta's wife. Lawmaker blocked Representative Carl DeMaio from speaking out against it because it violates the First Amendment. Basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to cover up their money laundering operation. And again, they're trying to make it a legal cover-up. This is what these criminals do. And in the end, it's going to prove that they are criminals. And everyone's going to see it as clear as day. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that we know eventually the deep state players are going to be using Antifa to push riots across the country. The timing of this, not too sure. Do I think it's going to happen during the midterms? Most likely not. I think the D's already realize that the cheating system that they had in place before no longer works the way it did during COVID. And I think they realize the only way to stop what's going to happen in the midterms is to actually bring lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit to try to delay all of this. But I do believe what they might try to do is they might save the events for when the arrests occur, when the indictments come out. If I'm going to put money on it, I would say that's when it was going to happen because they're going to need distractions. Plus, the Q posts tell us that when the indictments come out and people could see who the criminals are, this is when they're going to need the major distractions. So do I think it's going to happen during the midterms? No, I think their strategy is to use lawfare to try to delay the election results. And I think they're going to use Antifa and the illegals and the events later on. But think about it. The individual that authored the Antifa handbook, and Amuse put this out, him and his wife have fled the U.S. and they are now in a different country. So Mark Bray provides Antifa groups an instruction manual filled with terror tactics. Bray wrote the terrorism how-to manual after meeting with the 61 Antifa leaders in 17 countries. He brought his findings back to the U.S. And basically, his wife was convicted for conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine, but her sentence was commuted by, guess who? Biden in 2024. So both him and his wife claim they are in exile in Spain. It's amazing how they didn't want to be in the U.S. anymore, huh? Because they know what's coming. First of all, Antifa is designated as a terrorist organization. Other countries have designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. I think the U.S. is also designated as an international terrorist organization. So, yeah, they're hiding right now. But I do believe those individuals that belong to Antifa that are still in the United States, they will be pushing riots later on. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that the Miami-Dade Circuit Judge, Ruiz, was unseated by 30-year-old conservative attorney Destiny Alvarez in Tuesday's election. And you have to remember, the left-back judge blocked Trump presidential library, and she has just been kicked off the bench by a 30-year-old. So this is a good thing, and this is what needs to happen across the country. All these corrupt judges need to be voted out. Those judges that are there because they're federal judges and they can't just be removed, they're going to have to be removed by Congress. They're going to have to impeach them because, again, if we're going to move forward with the rule of law, we're going to need judges that are going to rule on the actual law, not use lawfare. And you could see that Comey right now, he's trying to fight this every step of the way. And it seems like it's getting worse and worse for him. And I think this is why he postponed his case until October. He's hoping that something would change. And he might even try to do it again. Or he's hoping that he can get reassigned to a different judge that will actually assist him. But Paul Sperry put this out and said, James Comey and his D.C. lawyer David Kelly refused to provide federal investigators the original photo Comey took of his 8647 seashell threat on Trump, target of 2 prior assassination tries, because it held key metadata. So the FBI had to serve Apple with a warrant to search his cloud. So that's very interesting. So why didn't he want to give this over? Well, the honker says Comey doesn't have the original photo unless he took it with a drone. That picture is flat. If it were taken by someone standing on a beach, it would show some perspective. Usually, he took it straight down. Wouldn't it be on a little bit of an angle? Normally that's what people do. Or was this picture taken someplace else? That's interesting. Let's see how that all plays out. Then Paul Sperry says, text messages obtained by federal investigators reveal embattled former FBI Director James Comey and his book agent bragged about his 8647 threat against President Trump going viral on social media. He says, I'll be okay if it sells book, Comey says. Comey's agents are Keith Urban and Matt Latimer, who also repped the anti-Trump anonymous author and ousted former Trump White House aide Victoria Coates. So basically, they were making fun of it, which means he knows exactly what it means, and he was hoping that this would make his book or this go viral so he could sell his book. So he knew exactly, he just admitted what it means. So right there, that should tell you everything you need to know. And now the other thing that's very interesting is that we have Darlene Graham. She is now out there running for the Senate position of her brother. And a lot of people are like, well, she doesn't know anything about national security. She doesn't know about this. She doesn't know about that. And a lot of people saying, well, you know what? Maybe she's not really qualified to be a senator. But you have to remember, our founding fathers going way, way back, they didn't want politicians. They didn't want people who acted like politicians that knew everything to get into these positions. They wanted everyday Americans to be in this position. And when people say, well, she's not qualified, what does that really mean? Because she is qualified. All you got to do is read the Constitution. The U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, requires only 3 qualifications for a senator. At least 30 years old, a U.S. citizen for at least 9 years, an inhabitant of the state represented. That's it. That's all you need. Just like when President Trump ran to be president, he was a businessman. He built a very successful business, but he was never in politics. He was never a House rep. He was never a mayor. He was never a governor. He was never a senator. He was just an everyday business person who was very successful. What was his qualification to be president? Did he know the inner workings of politics? No. Did he know everything about national security? No. You see, our founding fathers, they wanted everyday people to be in government. This way they could relate to everyday people. They can keep their connection to the area that they're representing. That was the whole purpose of it. So all these people making a very big deal, she meets every single qualification. You can argue with it, but the Constitution is clear. And that's all you need. Now, Trump, it looks like he's doing something very, very interesting. He's now going to have the greatest rally of them all. He says the midterm convention is coming into Dallas, Texas, September 9th and 10th. It will be a rally like never before. Incredible. For the first time ever, Republicans from all across our great country will come together for a midterm convention to celebrate our tremendous victories and success, showcase our incredible candidates, and prepare for the most important midterm election in history. Our movement is bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. We have made America great again, and we are going to celebrate this tremendous and totally unprecedented success. The radical left lunatics are trying to destroy our country, but they have failed and will never be successful unless we allow that to happen, and we won't. We're going to win the midterms, protect our cherish our country, and make it greater than ever before. But be there, September 9th and 10th. It will be like nothing else. The music, excitement, and importance of this evening will be at levels never seen at a convention or political event. I will be with you both nights and raring to go. See you in Dallas, President DJT. And think about what Trump is doing. Every step of the way, he is actually mitigating the D Party, their cheating apparatus. Now think about it. He wants the DSA candidates to come in. He wants El Sayed. He wants Nixon. He wants them all winning because, again, this is the far left lunatics. What better way to basically have the D's go against their own party? Then have a convention and show everyone, look, this is common sense. Look how great this is. He's creating the red wave. That is what you're seeing right now. And what people are going to notice is that since Trump came into office, he has done amazing things. And yes, it's going to get better and better over time. Trump put this out on Truth. He's pointing to Rapid Response 47. This is Stephen Miller. This is what he said. President Trump has been in office in his second term for a year and a half and has solved problems that plagued this nation for decades, generations, or even longer. Rebalanced trade with Canada, protected American manufacturing from China, restored fairness to NATO, pursuing peace to the Korean Peninsula, toppled Maduro, taken the fight to the cartels, stopped Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, unleashed American energy, tamed inflation, cut taxes, secured the border. The list goes on. Absolutely. So people are going to see his achievements. People are going to see the crazies on the other side. You're going to have the moderate Democrats saying, I can't vote for communism. I can't vote for socialism. I can't vote for a Muslim. So they'll be against this. And Trump now is doing what? He is now exposing how they cheat in the election. Because in the end, what does he want? He wants the Save America Act. Yes, he would like that passed. He would like then to use an executive order to say voter ID, one-day voting, paper ballots. And he's using the census. He's using the investigations. He's using COVID to do all of this. Joe Lange points out something very, very interesting with the Census Bureau that Trump posted yesterday. He said Trump deserves more credit than he's getting. And I think this huge story is further evidence of a plan that is in place for a long time. Does anyone remember what happened during the 2020 census? Trump tried to force the census to require a citizenship question to the form. Do you remember Trump's legal reasoning? Trump claimed it was needed to enforce the Voting Rights Act. That wasn't a coincidence. The Supreme Court rejected that argument. Why? Because they were following the Constitution, which states that a census is conducted to count the number of persons in the U.S., not just the number of citizens. That's a loophole that has been exposed and could be fixed with a future constitutional amendment. And I think that's exactly what Trump plans to do. Trump connected the census to the Voting Rights Act. Do you remember the recent huge Supreme Court decision on the Voting Rights Act? In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the congressional districts based on race were unconstitutional. That created an acceleration in redistricting that gave Republicans a bunch of new districts, which they are now heavily heavily favored in, helping to secure the House for Republicans. But here's why that decision was so important and why it's connected to this new census story. Back in 2020, after the Supreme Court rejected Trump's requirement for citizenship question on the 2020 census, Trump wrote a memorandum to exclude illegals from the census population counts used for congressional apportionment. The Democrats immediately filed a lawsuit. Trap set. Thank you for playing. How do you clean up the fraud in congressional districting, especially in blue states? Do you remember what the Supreme Court decided in Trump's memorandum on removing illegals from congressional apportionment? The Supreme Court dismissed the case on procedural grounds without ruling on the merits. It still sits undecided at the Supreme Court. Why is that a good thing and part of the plan? The census counted the entire population in 2020. Trump can now compare government citizenship data with census data in every state and congressional district. Just a coincidence that DOJ recently finished cleansing the data at Social Security and removing all the non-citizens, dead people, and fraudulent accounts? Sure makes it a lot easier to compare citizenship data with the 2020 census and the 2020 election. That's what Trump is now doing. Do you understand why the Democrats are fighting in court to prevent turning over their voter registration rolls to Harmeet Dillon? She runs the Civil Rights Division at the DOJ, and she is focused on voter rights being violated by illegals. Can you see what's being set up? We're in the beginning stages of setting up a permanent safeguard for future elections. Congressional districts are based off of census data. Congressional candidates are elected based on the votes of citizens. Only citizens can vote in federal elections. Can you see the contradiction? Do you want to know why the Supreme Court held back that previous decision and left it undecided? Can you imagine how much that court case will change after the Trump administration and the DOJ prove that the Democrats have been using illegals to corrupt our entire election system nationwide for decades? The table is being set to revisit that court case and protect our election system. Closing a loophole. Absolutely. Everything is not by chance. Everything is done according to a set plan. And again, you have to reverse and shut down everything the deep state players have been doing for a long period of time. And Trump is even talking about election term limits, which is very, very interesting. Clandestine says, holy crap, did you catch that? Trump says that he thinks elections should be term limits and says that sometimes term limits are not productive because it forces good politicians out of office. Trump is soft launching running in 2028. So what is he really saying? Well, Trump's actual phrase is, I like to say that term limits should be elections. A term limit is an election. Means that voters themselves should decide how long politicians stay in office by electing or defeating them. On August 19, 2026, a reporter asked Trump whether he supported term limits for members of Congress or cognitive tests for elected officials. Trump replied that term limits are popular with the public and that he sees both sides. Number one, you could have a good politician, and why are we removing them with the term limit? We can have terrible politicians, and they stay on forever, and yes, we would like a term limit to get rid of them. He said that the public is pretty smart, pointed to recent Republican electoral success as evidence that elections already term people out, and added that he is still okay with the term limits. He also noted the practical problem that members of Congress would have to vote to limit themselves, and that is true. So again, he's talking about using elections to remove people. Now, the only way to do this is to have fair, free elections. You can't have the election system that the deep state players have created. You need to have a system that actually elects people, not installs people. And this is what Trump is setting up. So he's saying we can now actually use elections to get rid of people, because you have to look, if you look at McConnell, you look at Maxine Waters, you look at Nancy Pelosi, you look at all these people in Congress. The only reason they're there for 40, 50, 60 years is because they've been installed every single time. The system is rigged. Trump is about to end the rigged system. Now, does this mean Trump can run in 2028 if the people want him? No, because we have the Constitution. We have the 22nd Amendment. This actually stops him from doing this. But could it put pressure on the people in Congress to say, you know something, maybe we should take a look at the amendments. Maybe we should remove this and allow the people to decide if they want a president to stay on. Because if there's a lot of people saying we would want Trump for 2028, and I think this is why he's doing it, by the way, I think he's trying to build it up where the people say we want him. We don't want a term limit telling us we can't have this president. If that is the case, and the people, again, remember this is a counterinsurgency, if the people force the issue, that amendment can be removed. Think about that for a second. I think this is why he's pushing the 2028 so hard. And this is why he mentioned elections can be the term limit, or you can override the term limit. And the only way to do this is with fair, free elections. And I think this is why he keeps pushing this. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is the Department of War put this out, and it's a picture of Trump with soldiers behind him. It says, "Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business." So he's taking care of everything else right now, and we will be back doing what needs to be done so everyone can see it. And I do believe, yes, we have a little detour here, we have a little detour there, but this is all part of the plan. This is all part of basically taking back control. And every day that passes, this is what you're witnessing. You're witnessing those individuals that do not want the people to take back control, and they're fighting against it because they don't like what Trump is doing. Trump is taking back control and destroying everything that they had in place. So when you hear people saying they're bringing us to war, or he's doing this, or he's doing that, these are the people that are trying to stop him, trying to convince you that he's doing something else than actually taking back control of the system that we had. His mission is to remove the control from the central bank, to remove the control from the deep state, remove control from these people that have control for a very long time. And you're going to see the fake news, the influencers, and the rest fight this every step of the way. But once again, it's not going to work, because you can see that Trump, the more he dismantles, the weaker they get. They have no control anymore. They have no leverage. All they have is propaganda, and they're losing, because you know why? The Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.